And we're back, episode 3. Hey, Rob, how are you?
I was still laughing at your comment about giving me some hair when you touched the video up. I'm good though, thank you very much.
We don't
Good.
want to scare the viewers off before they've even started on the
I
podcast
know,
now, do we?
it's my fault.
Fantastic.
And the light just reflects straight off the top of my ball bit. But anyway, no, all good, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, really well, thank you.
Good.
We're back with episode 3. We've done 2 so far, so if you haven't had a chance to listen to them, then please do, go and listen through because they are really beneficial. Today, we're looking at the sufferers of emetophobia and kind of looking at the barriers to why they may not want to get themselves over emetophobia. And that, I think, to some listening, could sound like an interesting question because I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, well, I absolutely want to overcome my emetophobia. What are you talking about? But a thing that I see a lot is the fear of failure. Now, a lot of you poor emetophobia sufferers out there don't want to pick it up because you're so scared of not getting it right and not overcoming your emetophobia and then just being stuck with your symptoms, which of course makes sense if we think about it. So I wanted to touch a bit on today about why you can't fail at the program. Why, as long as you pick it up, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. So if you're ready, Rob, I'd like to dive into that a bit.
Cool. Okay. So I just got to reiterate what you said because obviously we've done lots of research over the years and got lots of feedback from people that have been through the program and people that have thought about going through the program, haven't quite done it yet, something. And the single most common resistance is the fact it's not about their belief or lack of belief in the program. It's their lack of belief in their own ability to put in the right effort to get through the program. And you're absolutely right. If you've got a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter how bad your life is, but with a light at the end of the tunnel, there's still something worth kind of living for and moving for. But if emetophobia sufferers have been through lots of things before and they believe they've run out of choices and the Thrive program is their last choice, there is a worry that actually that light then tunnel, they could put that light out and then they'd have nothing. And they'd rather, and it makes sense if you think about it, I'd rather live with emetophobia with the possibility of a cure than live with emetophobia and not believe there's a cure. So there can be quite a lot of resistance. And I speak to some people that have bought the manual, for example, and I send them an email and say, how are you getting on? And they say, well, the day after I bought it, I hid it under the bed. I haven't opened it yet. And I said, what do you mean you haven't opened it yet? You've had it 3 weeks now, by my reckoning. Oh, I'm so excited. But on par with my excitement is fear that what if I don't get it? What if I can't read it? What if there's stuff in the manual that I don't understand? What if I can't apply it? What if I dive in and do too much? What if I don't dive in and too little? And there's all these catastrophic, hypervigilant, fearful worries about what if it doesn't work. I'd rather have it under the bed and not look at it than start it and fail. And of course, most emetophobes, although they might not know it before they start the program, tend to be perfectionists and black and white thinkers and catastrophizers and this kind of stuff. So you could understand they're putting so much pressure on themselves, and the number of emails we get saying, this is my last attempt, this is my last try, I've tried everything else and all these therapies, this is the last thing I'm going to try, which on the one hand sounds lovely, but on the other hand is putting so much pressure on themselves to get it done or to make it work that it's almost like, if I said to you now, Joe, this is a genuine offer, right? In front of all of your viewers, right? I genuinely mean this. I promise you I will do this. Okay, I promise you I'll do this. I will give you £1,000 in cash, right? £1,000 in cash. If for the next 10 seconds, you don't think of a pink elephant.
Okay. I could just lie to you, but yeah, no, it's,
you can't, it's impossible. You're putting so much pressure on yourself to not do something, you're bound to screw it up. Okay? So, that's a very long-winded answer to what you were saying, but it is impossible to fail going through the Thrive program, because there is no pass and fail. There is no start and finish gate. There is no black and white. Now I've got a problem. Now I'm cured of the problem. It's not digital. The switch is not either on or off. People who have emetophobia have emetophobia because they've got a number of unhelpful beliefs, a number of unhelpful thinking styles, some attitudes, some behaviours, some cognitive distortions. There are various cognitive processes that together, like ingredients in a cake, are creating this phobia. So even if you were to pick up the manual and just work through the first chapter, it's going to help you.
Yeah.
Probably won't cure you, right? But it's going to help you. It's going to ease some of the pressures. It's going to give you some understanding about why you have the program, why you have the problem. And then if you go on to the next chapter, it's going to free those cogs up a little bit more and give you some skills to help fight the thoughts and feelings. And then the next chapter. So wherever you stop going through it, you are only going to improve. There's no possibility of making your problem worse. The more effort you put into it, the harder you work through the program, the more respite you're going to get. If you work really hard at it for 6 or 8 weeks, okay, you're going to reach that total cure. And going off on a tangent for a second, so we've had this conversation about the word cure. I never wanted to use the word cure in relation to emetophobia. I never wanted to call the first manual Cure Your Emetophobia and Thrive. It's ex-sufferers that insisted when I asked them that we called it that. Because emetophobes that have got emetophobia hate the word cure because it's such a frightening thing and they don't believe it's possible. People who've got over it insist on using the word because it means everything in the world to them. So we're caught between this rock and the hard place, really. But cure for us means not having any thoughts plaguing your mind during the day, being able to do all the things in life that a non-emetophobe would do, and really not being bothered, not being frightened, not running a mile if you think that you or someone else is going to be sick. That's what a cure is. Okay? You are only going to get better going through the program. If you do chapter 1, you might get 10% better. If you thoroughly apply chapter 2, it's another 10%. By the time you've done all 10 or 12 chapters, and if you've applied them correctly, you'll be completely over it. If you haven't applied them correctly, you still haven't failed. You just go back and do it again. Go back to the bit where you think you're missing. You can do our online quiz again, and the online quiz will tell you exactly how much you've changed and what you've changed in your thinking, your beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, everything. It will show you what the grey area still is. Maybe you're still a perfectionist. Maybe you're still catastrophizing. Maybe you've still got some unhelpful beliefs about being sick that are stopping you from getting completely over it. Well, our quiz will identify exactly what those issues are, and then you go to the relevant chapter and you work on it. You keep on working on it until you do it. It's no different. I'm actually genuinely doing the Couch to 5K at the moment. Okay, it's a process. The more I know. The more I
sorry, the smile just crept
I
onto
know,
my face.
mate, it's bloody hard work, right? The more effort I put in, the quicker I reach the 5K easily. Okay, if I don't do it for a few weeks, it's hard to get back into. If I reach the next step on the app and I'm finding it too hard, I go back a step. I'm on the minute jogging, minute walking at the moment. Okay, I'm doing that all right. If I step up too quickly, if I go to the next bit and it seems too tough, I'll just step back again. I don't have to do it by next Tuesday. I just want to get to the point where I can run 5K. The cure, the conclusion, the goal of being able to run that 5K is an inevitable conclusion, right? It's only a matter of time and effort till I get there. Cannot fail at it, right? Unless I pick up an injury or something, right? I really cannot fail at it. I've proved to myself I can run for 4 or 5 minutes solidly. So it's only a question of getting fitter and the muscles getting used to it and everything else, right? And stretching, blah, 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 blah. It's an inevitable conclusion that at some point in the next 4 weeks to 2 months, I'll be running that 5K. It's exactly the same for the emetophobe going through the program. You cannot make yourself worse. You cannot create more fear and anxiety. All you are doing is slowly unpicking that knot, which is your phobia, and gently at your own pace, unpicking it and pulling it apart. If you feel you're going too quick, slow down a little bit. I think also, and it's a very long-winded answer, and I apologize, some people,
That's good.
some people also find themselves resisting the idea that it's a 6 to 8 week program. And I've talked about this a couple of times on some other videos. It is a 6 to 8 week program, and 6 to 8 weeks is the ideal time period in which to go through it. Okay. For a number of reasons. If you're working on it every day, 6 to 8 weeks is a good time period, because people can put a little bit of effort in every day for 6 to 8 weeks. Any longer than that, and holidays get in the way, and kids going to school and stuff at work and blah, 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 blah. So they drag it out a little bit longer. Having said that, there's no reason why you can't do it in 6 months.
Yep.
You know, Lisa, for example, if people want to look at Lisa's video, she ended up taking like 3 years or something to finally completely cure herself. But she did completely cure herself, okay? And she kept going back into it. I mean, this was several years ago now, before we had the support materials and expert help from yourself to help people get there much more quickly. But actually, if someone with emetophobia bought the manual, and even if they picked in and out of it over a 10-year period, if eventually at the end of that 10 years, they'd worked their way through the manual properly and thoroughly, they'd be over their emetophobia. I mean, we don't want them to take 10 years, right? You know, we want them to take, 8 weeks, 3 months maximum, right? But there's actually, don't be scared of its 6 to 8 weeks. It's not, if you haven't done it in 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to fail and it's never going to work. That's just the ideal time period to do it in, that's all. You can do it in 3 months, you can do it in 6 months. If you feel happier that you want to focus on it generally, slowly, gradually over 6 months, fine, do it over 6 months. No problem at all. You'll still get there.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that sort of ties in nicely to kind of discussing pressure and how much pressure emetophobes can put on themselves, either before going through the program or during the process, right? Because, and quite rightly, they're living with emetophobia, which I know from experience. I know from experience working with clients. I know how awful emetophobia is, right? So it's no wonder they want to get over it like that. They just want it to be gone. It makes perfect sense. So they put so much pressure on themselves to be doing it perfectly, to be over it in, a really short space of time. And sometimes, or almost always, that pressure is counterintuitive. It makes the whole process a lot more difficult because they're just constantly piling it on them and not processing it properly.
Yeah. And am I doing it right? Am I putting enough effort in? I need to check with someone that I'm doing enough, doing it. Yeah, 100%. So, this is why when you first get the manual and you first sit down with it, you want to have a little reset. You want to manage your own expectations, not just read through the manual in one night. You can do, right? It doesn't serve any purpose at all. You've got to manage your desire for control. Something emetophobes also have in abundance usually is this thing called desire for control. Because they feel so powerless around their emetophobia, they generally try to over-control certain situations in their life to avoid exposure, things like that. So generally now they're used to over-controlling lots of situations, particularly around their emotions, and over-controlling their effort going through the program and their expectations is something that actually they're so bound to do. Things so logical, they're going to do that. So even though I tell them not to, most emetophobes will read through the manual, first of all, in one night, hoping to get a glimmer out of it that's going to suddenly tonight make their problem disappear. Of course, it's not going to. They need to read through it slowly. They need to action it slowly. They need to let all the stuff sink in. They need to gently challenge some of their thoughts, beliefs, their attitudes, their behaviours, unhelpful way they think about certain things. And that takes time. Each day, a little bit of time to get there. But the other thing is, in terms of that pressure, the other pressures they can put upon themselves is that, and I've never had emetophobia. I know you did, right? I never had it. And when I'm talking to husbands and partners and things like that, and other people that have said, I've seen those emetophobia videos, I've seen the emetophobia manual, how can they have this thing so badly? Why is it so badly? And I liken it to, imagine you were burgled at gunpoint one night
Sure.
and you're expecting that to happen every day after that. Imagine how frightened and traumatized and stressed and worried and hypervigilant and over-controlling you'd be if every night you're just waiting for that to happen again. Imagine how you'd feel if you're Ukrainian right now, okay? And every night you're worrying and fearing that a bomb's going to drop, or anywhere else in the world where there's civil unrest. And every single night you're waiting for those noises, for those bombs or gunshots or something else. You'd be living a life full of terror. Of course you want it to end. Imagine going to someone in Ukraine and saying, yes, it's going to take 6 months for you to for this to stop happening. They don't want to wait 6 months. They don't happen tonight. They want you to take these bombs away tonight. They want you to take away this fear tonight. And so, of course, you'd understand if people put a tremendous amount of pressure on themselves to do that. The trouble is, there's no point in putting the pressure on because it doesn't speed up the process. It only makes it harder. Makes it harder to get through. The biggest issue that we found always, as you well know, for someone going through the program, and even 85-year-old Mary had this, is perfectionism. Is that thinking style of perfectionism. One of the biggest things that emetophobes do is beat themselves up a lot and put themselves down a lot every day when they think they're not doing enough or working hard enough or being a good enough mum, good enough wife, good enough partner, good enough friend, good enough mate, good enough builder, good enough chef, good enough anything. And if you're being that hard on yourself all the time, it's impossible to overcome emetophobia while being like that. Because how you feel about yourself and how powerful you feel in your self-esteem are all part of the reason why you have emetophobia in the first place. So all of these thinking styles need to change, and the person really needs to get themselves thriving in the true sense of the term and improving all of these areas of their life in order to overcome emetophobia, because emetophobia is a symptom of all those areas.
Yeah, and with that pressure, if you think about it, imagine you're an emetophobia sufferer, right? That you've spent your entire life carrying around your anti-nausea tablets or your chewing gum or whatever it is, right? And you're going through the program, and maybe your first goal that you've set out for yourself is to go into college or go into work without your tablet for the day. And you manage that, and it's the first goal you've set for yourself. But because you've been putting so much pressure on yourself to be achieving great heights and to be over your emetophobia and to be never be thinking about it throughout the process and not feel any anxiety around it, that you do that massive achievement and you go about your whole day without that medication, without that crutch. Do you think that you're going to process it and pat yourself on the back and feel over the moon about it? No, because you've put so much pressure on yourself to be doing it perfectly and be achieving huge goals, hugely unrealistic goals at the beginning of the program.
And it
seriously
it feels like such a tiny goal. For them, it'd be akin, go back to my running analogy, because it's all about me, right? Imagine if I was trying to run a marathon, right? If I was learning, if I was practicing to run I was training for a marathon. For an emetophobe with their perfectionist thinking to, for example, make what we would consider a massively positive step and not go to college that day or work today without their tablet, or to not wash their hands 15 times, or to drink yesterday's milk, or eat, challenging in any way, shape or form their safety-seeking behaviours. That's a massive, massive step to completing that marathon, right? It would be like running the 5K really easily. But in their minds, it's like taking one small step. They would feel like they're taking one tiny step of a 26-mile marathon, which is what you do, right? What you're talking about, okay? They would see it as such a small thing. It's one step up Everest. And we're saying to them, that's a massive thing you've done. Congratulations, well done. It's a huge step on your journey, because they've got their black and white thinking lenses on, and their perfectionist lenses, they see it as such a tiny step that actually they don't process it. Now, everything you know about positive psychology, like my app for my Couch to 5K, is about processing what you've achieved. When I think today,
Yep.
when I got to go running later, there's no way I can do this. I'd look at my stats from last time I did it. So actually I can. I did it last week. Look how far I've come.
Yep.
Look how far I've come in 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, I would have bet you I couldn't run a marathon. Now I'd bet you I could. I mean, I can't now, but I can see that in 6 months I could. So recognizing how much progress you've made and recognizing the small steps is hugely important. And if you're a perfectionist, you don't tend to do that. I don't recognize it. So that continues the pressure. So someone might say to you, I've been studying the manual for 3 weeks now, and I'm up to chapter 4, Joe, and I'm doing all the exercises, but I haven't changed at all. I'm still exactly the same as I was. But when you have a conversation with them, they'll say, oh, actually, I am taking the kids to school now. Oh, yeah. And oh, yeah, I do now.
Yep.
I can now have milk in my coffee. Oh, and oh, yeah. Actually, now you mention it, I've slept well the last 3 nights. But they don't see those things. And partly they don't see those things because actually all they care about is not having the bombs dropping tonight. That's all they're focused on. All they're focused on is the point where they are over their emetophobia. So it's really important that they recognize the small steps that they're taking every single day to do that. And even if they read a paragraph of the manual each day for the next 2 years, if they applied it, they'd overcome their emetophobia.
Yep.
They're picking apart that knot in that bundle of string. They're picking apart that thing little bit at a time. You can't go in it. If you go in there and just start pulling apart, nothing's going to happen. So you can't just go bang and do it. You're slowly picking apart the strands of this knot, okay, until it comes undone.
So this sort of comes down to setting and managing your expectations prior to going through the program and whilst going through it. Because if your expectation is to be over it, within a couple of weeks, then everything you do, any of these big achievements, go completely unnoticed because your expectation is to be, it is far and beyond what anyone would be expecting of you. If you've lived with this horrible phobia for 20, 30 years or however long it is, right? You can't expect yourself to just like that and for it to vanish. It is a gradual process, and you will create good days, you will create bad days, and it is all about managing it.
And having perspective on that as well, Joe, because you're absolutely right. You will have good days. Your progress through the program won't be linear. Okay, here's your start point, here's your end point. Okay, but it won't be a straight line like that. It'll be, you have a good day, or there's a bad day, or you have a better day. So it'll be like that. It'll be a bit like a roller coaster, okay, which starts here but ends here with you over it. But of course, if you're a perfectionist and you're hypervigilant and you catastrophize and you're living in the moment, when you're having a good day, you'll realize you're having a good day. But when you're having a not such a good day, you'll think, I'm failing, it's no good, I knew it's too good to be true, I knew it wouldn't work, I'm worse than I ever was, it's the worst day of my life, blah, 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 blah. So standing back and keeping perspective and managing your expectations, you can't have a good day every day. It's not going to be linear like that. Okay? The general trend is starting there, finishing there, okay? But actually, it's going to be like, till they get there. And being calm, standing, recognizing the small changes they've made, recognizing the positives, processing the positives, recognizing what they're learning, that they're getting more control, that they can relax their thinking around this and their worries around this. That just speeds up that process. So it is, to reiterate, ideally, it's easiest, a better way of putting it, it's easiest going through this over 6 to 8 weeks because of the knowledge that you're learning. And again, a really good metaphor is the running thing, right? Because I am up to the minute on, minute off now, right? But if I don't do it this week, my fitness is going to go down a little bit. So if I don't do it this week and I start again next Monday, Okay. I might not be able to do the minute on, minute off. And I'm going to go, oh my God, I'm failing. I've lost it. I knew it's too good to be true. I knew it wouldn't. Well, actually, I haven't done any for a week. So of course I've lost a bit of my fitness and a bit of my motivation. So that's the only reason why it's a 6 to 8 week program. Yeah. Because it's easiest to do it. You can do it in a year if you want to do it in a year. You can do it in 6 months if you want to do it in 6 months. If it feels easier and it helps you manage the pressure a bit, fine. Okay. Realize those ups and downs are going to be more because there'll be a week where you don't do anything and you've lost a bit of your mental fitness, to stick with my analogy, okay? And you've lost a week, okay? That's fine if you want to lose weight, okay? It's absolutely fine if I don't do any training this week, okay? But what I can't do next Monday is catastrophize and complain to myself about the fact, oh my God, I've lost a little bit of my stamina. Of course I have. I haven't done it for a week. And that's about managing my own expectations, yeah? If I hadn't run this week, I'd have to be managing my expectations. So when I pick the app up on Monday next week, I'm not expecting to do brilliant and then be really sad and upset and annoyed and guilty that I don't do brilliantly. Of course I'm not going to do brilliantly. I haven't run this week.
Yep.
That's why it's a 6 to 8 week program. Do it over 6 months, fine. I can do my Couch to 5K over 6 months. But I've got to manage my expectations.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not going to be linear if I keep missing out on training. Yeah, if I pig out all week this week because basically I'm on holiday this week and I eat every night, or I drink too much beer or drink too much wine or something, I can't still expect and hope that miraculously I run a 5K next. So managing my own pressure that I'm putting on myself, I've got to have a realistic appraisal of my situation and the efforts I'm putting in.
Yeah, and you're going to have, during your running process, difficult days where maybe it's raining outside or maybe you pick up a little bit of an injury. But as long as you continue to get yourself out there, as long as you continue to pick yourself back up, dust your knees off when you have a stumble and continue along that path, then come next year, you will be running 5 marathons in the space of a month.
So the marathon's a good analogy. I've done about 5 in the space of a month, right? I heard that. Don't put that idea into my mind. So the running's a good metaphor. Okay. The knot is a good metaphor, right? As well, because you didn't get that knot. Okay. It didn't come as a knot, right? It came as a piece of cotton on a reel or a piece of string. Okay. You've made that knot and you're now learning to unpick it. You weren't born with emetophobia. You know that. Stick to my line I had a minute ago. The line didn't really start here. The line started here when you were born. You didn't have emetophobia then. Okay. You didn't have it when you were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You didn't have it then. Okay. You created it around 8 or 10 or 5 or 16 or 42. And then you've had it for X number of years. And all you're going to do now is uncreate it. You weren't born with it. Okay. Nobody's born with it. The average age that people first start having symptoms, I think at the moment is 9, or some reports say 13 or something. You weren't born with it. Okay. So at one point, that piece of string was an open piece of string. Okay. You've made it into a knot, and we're showing you how to gently unpick that knot. Same thing with emetophobia. Your starting point isn't, I've got emetophobia. Your starting point was actually, at one point, I was this happy little kid who couldn't care less about being sick. Then, for whatever reason, I created this massive phobia, and that's where I am now. Over the next 6 to 8 weeks or longer, your progress is going to be like that to the point where you're over it. That's it.
Yeah. And if you can bring those kind of expectations coming to the program, then it's going to be a much easier process. And again, you will have difficult days. There won't be a single emetophobe that hasn't gone through the program that hasn't had difficult days. So don't expect to just sail off into the sunset and overcome your emetophobia overnight, because that's unrealistic. But if you come into it with a calm, steady approach that you are going to get over this thing in however long that takes and however long you let it take with however much effort you put in, but knowing that ultimately, if you keep at it, you will get over this phobia. But you do have to start.
And that's why it's also important that anyone going through the program really has a good look and really thoroughly watches a whole bunch of the video testimonials, because the more confidence you've got in the program before you start, the better you are at managing your expectations. Yeah. So if you know an emetophobe and you gave them a copy of the manual and say, right, this is going to change your life, they have no knowledge of the program yet, or success stories, or how it works. So actually they've got no way of controlling or managing their expectations, right? But if you've just watched 150 video testimonials, you're now in the mindset of, this is going to work for me. I'm just like some of those other people. In fact, I'm just like most of those other people. This is going to work for me. I get it. And even though I'm always going to have that slight doubt, because I always think that mine's worse than anyone else's, and I always think that I'm going to be the one that got away, I'm going to be the one person that's going to be impossible, and maybe I was born with it, maybe it's a chemical thing or something.
Mm-hmm.
At least having watched lots of testimonials and really understood the first couple of chapters of the manual, really by chapter 2, you should be much calmer. You should be able to go, okay, right, still a frightening journey, and it's still stressful, and it's still important and precious and pressured and all these other things, but you want to be feeling by end of chapter 2, much like my running app, that it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Still going to be a bumpy ride, but actually in the back of my mind, I know what's going to happen. As long as I put these efforts in, I can see each week that I'm getting better. I've only read 2 chapters. I'm feeling 50% better already. I'm feeling much more powerful already, or feeling more insightful already. I'm understanding myself more already. That's going to dramatically smooth out the process going forward. And it's really important to do that.
Yeah, perfect. I think that pretty much covers everything that I want to chat about today. Unless you've got any other crucial nuggets of information up there, any more, anything about your running, how that's going. I'm sure everyone's fascinated.
There's pain in the backside, to be honest. But no, I don't think so. I think those are pretty much the worries and doubts that people have. When we talk to people that have overcome it, that they say, put more effort into managing your thinking at the beginning. Because if you don't, it's really hard. Imagine if you didn't learn to manage your thinking and your expectations. You went through it. Imagine that you start the program, Joe, and you were just as anxious and neurotic all the way through the program. You couldn't possibly apply it properly, could you? The whole point is that you are learning about yourself. You are learning how to make changes in a calm and powerful and safe way. And you slowly make those changes and feel better and better. And as you feel better and better, you feel more and more calm. And those unhelpful thinking styles like perfectionism and black and white thinking, catastrophizing, hypervigilance, as you feel more powerful, they calm down. Yeah. My belief in my ability to run a marathon increases every time I go out running. My belief in my ability to fly a little microlight aeroplane increased dramatically with each lesson that I had. I was terrified when I first got in one, right? But with each lesson that I had, and I felt more skillful and more powerful and understood it a bit more and had some skill and understanding, my anxiety levels decreased. If I didn't process what I was learning, by the time I came to my first solo, I'd still be terrified and I'd have crashed the plane. Yeah. Every single pilot around the world that flies jumbo jets or flies hang gliders or flies a little, stick and paper microlight like I do, every single person goes solo at some point. Okay? And you only go solo when you've got enough skills to go solo and enough belief in yourself that you're not going to panic. So your belief in yourself and your self-efficacy increases as you're studying the manual. That's why that's important.
Brilliant.
If I was as terrified,
fantastic. Okay.
If I was as terrified when I went solo as I was when I had my first lesson, I would have definitely crashed that airplane because I was terrified when I first flew an airplane. When you're in a little microlight and at 5,000 feet and someone says, right, Joe, here's the steering wheel, mate, here's the stick, over to you. You think, oh my God, what am I doing? This is you're so anxious, so frightened. The moment you grab the whole thing's going and come crashing into the ground. Your confidence and your calmness and your self-efficacy increases as you are learning how to fly. As you are learning how to thrive and overcome your emetophobia, your confidence, your skill set increases, your thinking, your catastrophizing, all those unhelpful, calm down to get it easier. What you have to do is pick up the manual and start. There's no point in sticking it under the bed. It's not going to help anyone.
Yeah. Tremendous ending.
All right.
Lovely. Okay. Brilliant. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sticking around, answering my questions and having a bit of a natter about it. I hope everyone else that was listening in enjoyed it and took something from it. See you again soon.
Brilliant. Nice to see you, Joe. And I'll see you again soon.